Alright, turn that down a bit. Alright, let's try this again, this time with some audio. This is a ATX Footprint 8088 board, if you can believe that. And the cool part about it is you get to build it yourself. So I've got a couple of pieces left to put on this thing. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to put a couple more pieces on here. You can install this trimmer resistor at location RV1. Soldering iron's up to temperature. So let's try soldering this thing on. Normally what you want to do is start with the lowest profile pieces first, and then work your way up to the thicker ones like these ISA slots or this power connector. However, I did not have these parts in hand, and now I am trying to put them in at the last second here. So we'll figure out how to do this. Can't get my fingers down inside there. It's a 3-pin part going into different holes, and then it comes out the back side. So what we'll do is we'll fold those pins over a little bit to hold it in place. It looks pretty good. Get my handy dandy soldering wire holder. Ordered that thing off of AliExpress because it was $4, and it would have been more expensive to make one than it would have been to order it. And it took, as stuff on AliExpress tends to do, about a month to get here, which is kind of ridiculous, but that is what it is. And they shipped it in a plain bag. No packing material, no box, no nothing. I found that to be pretty interesting. And of course, because it had, there we go. Because it had no packing material or box or anything, it's all dinged up and scratched, and just I guess I'm just should be grateful and lucky and happy that I got all the screws and nuts and bolts and everything like I was supposed to. Alright, so we got that piece on. Let's take a look at it, make sure it looks good to us. Which it does look good to us. A little bit of a fat solder blob there. Let's clean that up a bit. Trim off the extra legs. Go over to the list. Mark that one off on the list because we're done with it. And then I've got 2 switches to install. And these are going in SW1 and SW2. So SW1 and SW2 is down here. And I have no idea whether these have an orientation or not. I really can't imagine that they do, though, because these are momentary switches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the writing on the back have the same orientation as the writing on the board, just because, you know, you got to pick something. And these hold themselves in through some tension, which is pretty nice. So I don't need to really bend the pins like crazy on the back side or anything. Put them in, get your power and reset buttons. Get your handy dandy soldering iron out. Tin the tip, heat the pin, add some solder. Part of this video is to test the audio. Last time I had a microphone plugged in, but I did not test it first, and I wound up recording a whole video with absolutely no audio. And if you think watching somebody solder is pretty dry. You should try watching somebody solder in absolute silence. It's even more dry. None of my witty anecdotes or jokes or anything got caught. You guys missed out, and it will never come back again. I'm not even going to trim those. Alright, empty bag, get rid of that. Mark the parts off. Let's see what the next piece is I need to add to this. Oh, I gotta add some LEDs. The LEDs that I got are pretty interesting because they do not have positive or negative on them. And they look kind of funny. There's 4, and there should be, there it is, actually there should be 5. So I'm not sure if I'm going to use these, or if I'm going to order some new ones. So what I'm going to do real quick is try and see if these do have an orientation, or they don't have an orientation. Which would be kind of weird for a diode to not have an orientation. But we'll see. Get out the breadboard. Get out some resistors. And see what we can do. So what's going on in the background is my radio is going to tell me, well, it's not going to tell me anything, it's a net and I'm just listening to some traffic pass right now just to try and have some noise in the background of some varying heights or depths. See what this looks like. Some people can read resistor color codes. I am not that good, so I'm looking for a 470K resistor. I don't know which one of these is a 470K resistor. Looks like it is a 1. So this radio is playing the Old Miss net, the Old Man International Sideband Society net. I'm going to try that one. And what that is designed to do is get you the ability to get the Worked All States badge pretty darn quick. And the Worked All States badge means that you have made at least one contact in every state in the U.S. and that person has confirmed that you have made that contact. So you both sides of the conversation have to participate in order to get the award. Alright, so that didn't work. So what you can do is you can join this net and put your call sign out there, and what they will do is give you a turn to put your call sign out to the rest of the net, and anybody who wants to work you or anybody you call specifically will be able to work you. And you log it, they log it, you upload it to Logbook of the World, and after you get all 50 states, then you get an award when you apply for it. I'm probably 25, 30 states into the Worked All States award just because of this net. So it's pretty cool. And you can see now that the LED setup on the breadboard works. And these are tiny little spacings on here, so I'm going to have to do something to bridge that connection to make that work. Kind of cheating here, but like I said, I'm just trying to test the LED out, so it doesn't need to be a beautiful circuit, it just needs to be a working circuit. So that LED works, and let's turn her around. Okay, so there is a polarity to these, even though it's not marked in any way that made any sense to me right off the bat. I think I figured it out though. Let's try that again. Yep, there we go. That's a pretty color blue. These two LEDs are actually different colors. This one is green-ish. So you can see a little bit of difference in the two colors there. So now I just have to figure out what that means. Alright, so if you look at the bottom of these guys, the writing is on one side, and there's a little notch. See, a little zoom, Mr. Zoom. There is not enough light there for you guys to see that. Alright, not enough light. Okay. So, we'll keep that one in the breadboard for reference. Now we know which direction the electricity flows through it. I'll put the breadboard off to the side, put the battery away, put those parts away. Put the board here back out. And there is a notch on one side of the board on the silkscreen. And there is a notch on one side of the light. And I still don't have a whole lot of confidence. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the notches together. And if it doesn't work, then we're going to desolder them and put them back. Because the other thing that I am missing is actually a power supply for this guy. I need to dig a power supply out of a case and test it with this board, and we will do that just after this. Come on, you can get in there. There you go. So the writing doesn't really appear to be uniform, but the notch, I would assume, was put there for a reason, and the writing is just what happened as it ran through the machine. These are pretty interesting LEDs. So, this net that you're listening to in the background here uses some software called NetLogger on the computer.
Kilo India 4, Charlie, Kilo Zulu, Tom, you're also a 5959 in Pennsylvania.
So when you're trying to get that last state, if you haven't worked Alaska as an example, you can jump on the system on the internet here and you can take a look at who's in Alaska, and you can make a specific call for somebody that's in Alaska. And that's a pretty neat little thing. Now, I learned a trick the other day that I'm going to try here. Something new to me. These LEDs are not sitting too tightly up against the board. what you do is you get a little heat on one of them, so it holds it in place. And then now you've got the solder and everything there. You can reheat it and check your work. And then when it cools off, it'll be nice and flush to the board. And that worked out really well, so I'm going to keep doing that. Alright. So you can see that that second one in from the serial port is a little canted. So what I will do is I will apply some heat to the pin, hold it in place, let it cool. And now it is not canted anymore. That's a neat little trick. And I learned that one from I think it was one of Ben Heck's videos. So, thank you, Ben. That's working beautifully. I really wish that these, the writing on these LEDs was all going in the same direction. Just because it would look a little bit neater when you look at it, but once this is inside the case, inside the machine, no one's ever going to see it. But I will know that it's not up to my own personal standards. There's probably enough solder left on this. Put a little bit in there. And last call. All right. So the cool thing about being net control for this kind of net is you get a little bit of a bonus. First off, you get the net control practice, and this is a pretty busy net, but it's pretty easy going. Especially once you realize that you are the net control and you are in control of the net. But I think one of the benefits of doing this is that you get to work net control for free, and if people remember that, then they can work you and get 2 calls. It's 1 call tonight is the protocol. But if people remember that they can work net control for 1 free call, then you get an extra chance at working all states. So I do believe that was the last part that needed to be installed. Last parts that needed to be installed. And I hope I got them in the right direction. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the video, I'm going to get out a power supply, and see if this thing works like it's supposed to. So stay tuned for more. Alright, and we are back. One of the things that I'm going to have to figure out one of these days is what to do for power on this workbench, because there isn't really a whole lot of it. So, here's where we get to do the smoke test. So this power supply has an on-off switch on the back. Make sure that's set to off. It's also got a 115-230 switch. And a little funny story is the very first time I built a computer, it was set to 230. And the whole thing would boot up just fine until it went to do the floppy drive seek. And once it went to do the floppy drive seek, it didn't have enough power to turn the motor on the floppy drive. And the whole thing shut down. And of course, this being the first computer I ever built, I was worried that I did something wrong and ruined everything and all that kind of jazz. And I couldn't find anything. I went back to basics, did the whole thing, took it all down to bits, put it all back together again. Could not figure out what was going on. So I had a friend of mine take a look at it, and he couldn't figure anything out either. And then just at the last minute, as he was getting ready to unplug the power cord, he saw that switch on the back was set to the wrong side. So the power supply had enough juice in it to do the 5 volts and the 12 volts. Probably do the 5 volts, and then when I got to do the drive seek, it didn't have enough to do the 12 volts. So that was that. All right, let's turn this on. We've got standby light on, that's a good sign. Hit the power switch. And it is not working. And the light's not coming on to tell me that it's not working. So a good question would be, yep. All right. Of course, I've never used this power supply before, so I don't know if that's what the problem is. And never used this computer before. So let's try the other power switch. See if that does it. Nothing there. Let's try the reset switch. There's two reset switches, P2 and P6. I guess P2 is the reset light. I should probably have a special light for that, but okay. Very interesting. This is where I insert the sad trombone sound. Alright, I'm going to do some research, and we will get back when we figure out what it is. Alright, quick wrap up on where we are with this board. Did a little bit of troubleshooting today. I had a friend of mine help me out with it a little bit, because sometimes you just need an extra set of eyes. So what had happened was, on the 74 series logic chip that controls the on-off circuit, I didn't solder in one of the pins. So it is a 14-pin chip, and I soldered in 13 pins, and it turns out that that one pin that I missed is the one that does the business there. So what we did was we took a look at the schematic and walked around the board a little bit with some probes and hit the right pin, and it went crazy. And I thought I had an extra one of those chips and was going to try to put in a spare, and I didn't, so that made me think about looking at the board. I looked at the board, I turned it over, looked at it real good, just looked at it hard, looked at it some more, and found I was missing some solder on some pins. So, fix that, and it comes on. I do not have that jumper on the -5 regulator, which is why we're getting no -5 there. And I got some jumpers on order. So, I learned the other day that these are not jumpers, these are actually shunts. So, I'm still going to call them jumpers because that's what I call them, and that's what they're referenced as in all the material. But technically, they are shunts. So there you have it. Hit the power switch and it goes back off. Ta-da! That's a wrap for this one. Stay tuned for more.